Hi, Jason here. Are you new to Yu-Gi-Oh? Or are you an old fan coming back to the game and you need a refresher? You have stumbled upon how to play Yu-Gi-Oh for noobs. In this game, two players duel each other using a variety of monsters, spells, and trap cards to defeat the opponent's monsters and be the first to drop the other's life points to 0. So what you're gonna need in a duel, you're gonna need two decks. A main deck and an extra deck. The main deck is where you're going to be pulling cards from each turn. You will need around 40 to 60 cards in your main deck. You're allowed to have up to 3 copies of the same card in your deck and extra deck. To try to keep your main deck closer to 40 cards, it helps when you're trying to destroy your enemies, with your sheer power and ingenuity. Your extra deck consists of XEs, Synchros, Fusions, and Links, which can be used during the game if you meet certain requirements. You can have up to 15 cards in your extra deck. These cards cannot be counted towards the 40 minimum limit in the main deck. And the additional items you're going to need are coins, dice, counters, monster tokens, a calculator, and card sleeves. This is the field! And this is where you put your monsters and when they're played. You can add up to 5 cards here. There are 3 ways to position your monster cards. Face up attack position, face down defense position, and face up defense position. And this is the spells and trap zone. This is where you place spells and trap cards. You can have up to 5 cards here. You place them face up to activate them, or face down. Pendulum monsters can be activated in the leftmost and rightmost zones as spells. This causes the zone you use to also become a pendulum zone, for as long as a pendulum monster card is placed. And this area right here, this is the graveyard. This is where monster cards are destroyed, and when spells and trap cards are used, they're sent face up to this space. The contents of both players' graveyards are public knowledge. Your deck is placed face down in this space. You draw cards from here to add to your hand. If a card effect requires you to reveal cards from your deck or look through it, shuffle it, and put it back in the space afterwards. Special spell cards called field spell cards are placed here. Each player can have up to 1 field spell card on their own side of the field. To use another field spell, send your previous one to the graveyard. Field spell cards do not count towards the 5 card limit of your spell and trap zone. Place your extra deck face down in this space. You can look at the cards in your own extra deck during the game. During a duel, extra deck monsters may be summoned to the field from here using special methods. Pendulum monsters cards that would be sent from the field to the graveyard are placed face up here. A single game is called a duel, and a duel ends when one player wins or game ends in a draw. Duels are played in sets of 3 called a match, and the winner of the best 2 out of 3 wins the match. Each player starts a duel with 8,000 life points. You win a duel if you reduce your opponent's life points to 0. If your opponent is unable to draw a card, or if a card's special effect says, "You win," if you and your opponent both reach 0 life points at the same time, the duel is declared a draw. So the win conditions are, you reduce your opponent's life points to 0, your opponent is unable to draw a card when they're supposed to, or a special effect from a card that gives them the win. This is the first phase. The player whose turn it is draws 1 card from the top of their deck. A player with no cards left in their deck and unable to draw loses the duel. After you draw, trap cards or quick play spell cards can be activated before proceeding to the standby phase. Important note, the player who goes first cannot draw during the draw phase of their first turn. In the main action phase, draw 1 card except for the very first turn of the duel. Possible other actions activate trap cards, quick play spell cards, and etc. In the standby phase, some cards have effects that activate or costs you must pay in the standby phase. If you do not have any of these cards on the field, you can still activate trap cards, quick plays, spell cards before moving onto your main phase 1. In the main phase 1, this is when you play most of the cards you can normal summon, set or change the battle position of a monster, activate a card's effect, and set spell and trap cards. These actions can be done in any order you want, but some actions have restrictions. Summon or set a monster. There is no limit to the number of times you can flip summon or special summon during a turn, but you can only normal summon or set a monster, including a tribute summon, once per turn. Change your monster's battle positions. This includes flip summoning a monster or changing the position a face-up monster to face-up attack or defense position. You can change the position of each monster you control except in 3 cases. You cannot change the battle position of a monster that was played onto the field this turn. You cannot change it in the main phase 2 if the monster attacked during the battle phase. You cannot change it if you have already changed its battle position once this turn. You can activate spell and trap cards or the effects of spell, trap, or effect monster cards as many times as you want during this phase, as long as you can keep paying any costs involved. You can set spell and trap cards face down in your spell and trap zone during this phase, as long as you have space. This is the battle phase. Now it's time to battle with your monster cards. This phase is divided into steps. You do not have to conduct a battle phase every turn, even if you have a monster on the field. The player who goes first cannot conduct their battle phase on their first turn. Battle with monsters activate trap cards and quick play spell cards. The battle phase is split into 4 battle steps. It starts as start step, battle step, damage step, end step. If you conducted your battle phase, your turn moves into main phase 2 afterwards. The actions a player can perform in this phase are the same as in main phase 1. However, if the player already did something in main phase 1 that has a limit to the number of times it can be done, the player cannot do it again in main phase 2. Consider if you want to activate and set spell and trap cards or summon or set a monster. If you didn't do that in the main phase 1, based on your situation after the battle phase, use this phase to prepare for the opponent's turn. In this phase, summon or set a monster, change your monster's battle position, activate a card or effect, set spell cards or trap cards. Announce the end of your turn, and if there are any cards on the field which say during the end phase, in their text, resolve the effects in the phase. If you have more than 6 cards in your hand, at the end of the phase, select and discard cards to the graveyard until you only have 6 cards in your hand. I hope this helped. Please take a sec for a like, and if this video was super helpful, go ahead and subscribe. Also go ahead and check out my playlist. It's the list of cards of Yu-Gi-Oh! So you can assemble your favorite decks in the future. And I'll see you in the next video.